Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone back to our daily class. And in our daily class we are discussing what happens or how the best possible way to leave our bodies. And today we're going to do a lot of reading. I was going through the Bhagavatam, the third canto, 30th chapter. And in that chapter it describes the process of the materialist, how they become attached, how they leave their body, the consequence of leaving their body, and then how they take birth again. So we're not going to read all of that, but we'll read part of that up to the point where they leave their body, because that's actually what we're discussing. So just want to make sure you can hear me, because we were having trouble, but I'm assuming you can hear me because no one has said you can't hear me. And I was reading some things, very interesting things this morning, and just give me a second, I came in late. Yeah, I just sometimes I read in the morning and I get sidetracked and I get a little late. A very interesting topic, which maybe we'll talk about a little bit later. Okay, so Kamaniya, there's two paragraphs I sent you separately, and I wanted to start with reading that. So if you could put that up. It starts with Sri Bhagavan says, and this is from a lecture, I believe it's December 27th, 1975. No, this is something I just sent you this morning. It should be within the email. A lecture, December 27th, 1975. So you could check your email. If you have the folio, you can look for that lecture. But Kamini is going to look for that. But in the meantime, I think we'll begin discussing that, because it may take her a little while. She'll have to open up the email and so forth. This is, I came across this, I think I came across this actually by accident. I'm not sure. Yeah, I came across it by accident. Yeah, okay, that's it. So Bhagavan says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Authority says, you're required to transfer your asakti, attachment to me. Asakti is a stage of bhakti, but asakti also means attachment. So you have adoshada, tatu sadhasanga, bhajana kriya, nartha nivritti nishta, ruchi, and then asakti. And then after asakti comes bhava. So asakti is attachment. You're very attached to Krishna. And just like when we're chanting japa, we're not always so attached to Krishna, so we forget him. In the stage of asakti, just as our mind wanders to forget Krishna, in asakti, your mind wanders. If you forget Krishna, it wanders back. So it's like the opposite. Occasionally you forget, and if you forget, your mind wanders back. So Prabhupada continues, everyone has got asakti. Asakti means attachment, this material attachment. Someone has got attachment for his family, some to society, some to nation, some in business, and so many things. Asakti is there. But to make your life perfect, you have to go transfer the asakti to Krishna. In the Western countries, I have seen most of them, they have got no family, no asakti family. In other words, no attachment to family. That was the hippies. We all kind of ran away from home. So Prabhupada's commenting on that. But because the asakti is there, every one of them keeps a dog. So it seemed quite common amongst my friends and amongst hippies to have animals, to have pets. I don't know, maybe we weren't any different, but Prabhupada's commenting that he studied the hippies and he saw that they were all leaving their families, running away from home, rejecting whatever their parents believed. And then he saw, but they all had dogs. At least it was common. So he said, yeah, you gave up your attachment to your family, and now you have dogs, so you can't give up attachment. It's not possible. That was his point. Let me read that again, so now you understand the context. In the Western countries I have seen, most of them, they have got no family, no asakti family, no family attachment. But because the asakti is there, every one of them keeps a dog. So they are accustomed to place their asakti to cats and dogs. That means asakti cannot be finished. That is not possible. So first point is, we're going to become attached to something. If it's not Krishna, if it's not family, then it'll be a pet or a pet hobby, a pet project. It'll be something. So you haven't got to learn what is asakti. Asakti is there. You don't have to practice becoming attached. We naturally become attached. Everyone has got experience. Simply that asakti, that tendency of attachment, should be transferred to Krishna. That is Vrindavan life. In Vrindavan, the center of asakti is Krishna. There is Nanda Maharaja, Jashoda. They have asakti to Krishna. The young girls, they have got asakti to Krishna. The cowherd boys, they have got asakti to Krishna. The trees, they have got asakti to Krishna. The fruits, flowers, they have got asakti to Krishna. The water, Jamuna River, the asakti to Krishna. So if we make our central point of asakti, then you can create Vrindavan everywhere. So this is the success of life. We have to change the asakti to Krishna. So very simple, and this kind of summarizes a lot of what we've been speaking about. But I thought it was nice to read because we've been speaking about this and how Prabhupada put this. And basically all he's saying is, even if you become detached and you're not Krishna conscious, you'll just become detached from one thing, but you'll become attached to another material thing. So in the example here he gives of the hippies gave up so much attachment, but they replaced it with so many other material attachments. In the name of we're not attached to working 9 to 5 and accumulating wealth, then they became attached to their sex and drugs and psychedelic music. So that's the point Prabhupada's making. You're going to be attached to something. The point of Krishna consciousness is become attached to Krishna somehow or other. This morning I was studying something, and I had an interesting experience about attachment to Krishna. Tomorrow is Balaram Rasa Yatra. It's also Krishna Vasant Ras Leela, I believe. It's also Shaimananda Prabhu's appearance, and it's something else I can't remember. And tomorrow is the day my daughter was born, and it happens to be that this coincides with the actual moon birth or the birth of Vaishnava calendar, because these were the holidays. And so these are the holidays upon which she was born. So I became a little curious. I'd never really studied this topic of Balaram's Rasa Yatra. Balaram's Rasa Yatra is Balaram dancing with his gopis. He went to pacify Krishna's gopis, then he went to dance with his gopis. And I had just been studying an interesting point, that sometimes you may have heard that Radharani represents the Guru, because it's through Radharani that you serve Krishna, not directly, but through her. In the same way you don't serve Guru directly, you serve through you don't serve Krishna directly, you serve through Guru. So she represents Guru, or sometimes it's called Akhanda Tattva. Yes. But we've also heard that Balaram, the original Guru, is Balaram. So is it Radharani? Is it Balaram? And we've also heard it's Krishna. So is it Krishna? Is it Balaram? Is it Radharani? Guru represents Krishna. Krishna is Guru. We represent Guru. But then Radharani is Guru. She represents Bhakti to the highest degree. And then Balaram's Guru. And Nityananda is Guru because Nityananda is Balaram. And so it was explained that those who are in conjugal ras, Radharani, their bhakti goes through her. She is their guru. Those who are in Sakya ras, it's Balaram. He represents the guru for them. Okay, so keeping that in mind. Balaram has gopis he's dancing with, but he represents Sakya ras. So what's going on here? So I was studying that. Who are these gopis? Because technically, or at least according to Tattva, the relationship one has with Balaram is in Sakya ras. All Nityananda's friends in Chaitanya Leela are in Sakya ras. So then if they're dancing with Balaram in some kind of rasa dance, well, what's their position? So I was studying, reading, studying, and got different answers, and still not entirely satisfied. It may be due to the fact that I need to study it more. Maybe I did get the right answers. And one of the interesting answers was that Balaram externally is doing rasa, but internally he's serving Krishna. He's doing it for Krishna. So after I had read so many things, that was the last thing I had time to read. And so I wrote a godbrother of mine and said, this is what I've read, and can you shed light on this? And I was thinking about it, and it's a very interesting topic. It's just Krishna consciousness is so expansive and dynamic that you can go more deeply. So as I went more deeply into the topic, trying to understand Balaram's relationship with his gopis and how he's not doing it to enjoy, but he does that to serve Krishna. But how is that he's serving Krishna, and what relationship are those gopis in? And so I had to leave it at that because I had to get ready for this class. So I was telling my wife this morning, I said, a very interesting time studying this morning, this topic, reading different things, different commentaries of the Jiva Goswami's commentary and other acharyas, and things devotees who have studied this said, and lots of things. And so I was telling her, it's very interesting to get your mind focused on some topic, especially something that you don't understand, but you're interested in understanding, and then you start reading it and maybe discussing it with other devotees. And it absorbs your mind, or as we're saying here, asakti, you become attached to trying to understand. You become attached to reading what the Shastra says, what Prabhupada says, what the commentaries say. And so this morning I was answering a letter from a devotee who said that I don't have a strong attachment to reading Prabhupada's books. And I said, one of the things, I said, well, if you get the Veda base, then you can search something that you're interested in. So rather than like reading systematically, if that's difficult for you now, and that's not something you can do regularly, you can search what you're interested in. And one of the things that I did even long before the Veda base, we'd have to use indexes, which is a little more cumbersome, and you'd have to have all the books and go through them, was I would pose questions, and then I would try to answer my questions. So like this is a question. Who are Balaram's gopis? And what is their relationship? Is it conjugal? Is it Sakya? Is it something different? And what is he doing in his Rasa Leela with these gopis? So that's a question. And so you put the question if the question interests you, it absorbs your consciousness, and then you're looking for the answer, and you're going through Prabhupada's books and going through other books and reading articles and so on. So I think this is really something that we should all be doing, that allow your mind to think, contemplate, and what Prabhupada called philosophical speculation. And then go to Prabhupada's books to try to understand this. I'll give you another example, just to kind of help you understand the process. There's always been, as you probably can imagine, some confusion around the statement women are less intelligent, because, for a number of reasons, but one reason is because in Prabhupada's books he describes over and over again how men who are not Krishna conscious are foolish, are less intelligent, or unintelligent, or not intelligent. And so we know from experience that any woman who becomes a devotee, spiritually speaking, is far more evolved than your average person on the street, average man on the street, and far more intelligent, spiritually speaking, than your average man on the street, or most men, or all men, you could say, if you want to. I can't say all men, but most men. They're spiritually evolved. And if you talk to a woman who becomes a devotee, it's very common she'll say, yeah, when I was 17, I used to think about dying and how it didn't make sense, and I was looking for spirituality, like just logically, philosophically thinking. And, sometimes we say, well, men are more philosophical than women, but you see that most women, maybe all who became devotees, they were thinking philosophically. So in looking at Prabhupada's statement, women are less intelligent, naturally you think, it seems like all the women who became devotees were all looking, or most of them were looking at life philosophically, looking for something spiritual, understanding the limitations of materialism, looking at death, contemplating or believing in reincarnation, understanding karma, and like that. And we see that when we preach. We meet people who are very interested, who have questions, who have realizations already before they're devotee. And it's not just that it's only men who think that way. There's a lot of men are brain dead in that way. And so we see generally that's how everybody thinks who becomes a devotee, both men and women. So having these things going on in my mind, then I thought, okay, well, let's search on the database less intelligent and see what comes up. And so it was just something that interested me, and because I was interested, I could sit there and go through hundreds of searches on less intelligent. When you're interested in something, that's when your mind absorbs it. That's when you can read and get so much out of it. So that's what I did. And you probably want to hear what I found. I'll tell you what I found, but that's the side point. The main point is I was interested in it. And so it kept my attention. And I could go through all these things that Prabhupada said about less intelligent that perhaps maybe in a systematic reading wouldn't stick out or wouldn't be of interest to me. But within this context of the question in my mind, say, wait a minute, it doesn't seem like women are less intelligent. So when Prabhupada says less intelligent, what does he mean? What does that mean, women are less intelligent? And what does it mean to be less intelligent, etc.? And so what came up was men who don't surrender to Krishna, or people who don't surrender. People, usually Prabhupada says men, but he means men and women. Men who don't surrender to Krishna are less intelligent. That's what predominantly came up, right? And the other idea of less intelligent means more materially attached. So generally women are more materially attached. That's the other thing. But that didn't come up often. It wasn't less intelligent, was not predominantly coming up in relation to women. It was coming up in relation to men who don't surrender. And then you get these hits where Prabhupada said, if you think you're a woman, you're less intelligent. And these things of women, this, that, do not apply to devotee women. And so this is what came up. But my point is, because I was interested in that topic, because I'd been thinking about it, going back and forth in my mind, well, Prabhupada says this, but he says that, but we see that women are like this, but it says this in Shastra, and that doesn't seem to make sense on the basis of what I'm seeing. So is Shastra explaining it in a context I don't understand, or is it just, it's a global context that applies to all women, and I really don't understand what it means to be less intelligent? Maybe it's not IQ, maybe it's something else. So all this was going through my mind. And so my point is, I could get absorbed. So anything that you're contemplating absorbs you. And then you get attached to reading. And that's really good if you become attached to reading. So I want to relate one other experience. I, several years ago, it must have been 6 or 7, decided to develop a course on, a full weekend seminar on marriage. And prior to that, I had decided I wouldn't do that because I have other courses, and there were other devotees teaching about marriage, and a lot of the other courses I were developing, no one was teaching. So I thought, why should I duplicate? And then for about a year, I was getting a lot of emails with marriage problems, and I realized that we need more devotees teaching marriage. And so it came to the point in my mind that this was really important. And I became interested in learning about it, like extremely interested. Whereas before I didn't think about it. At this point I became extremely interested. The same thing happened to me when I learned about forgiveness. I had an experience with letting go, and then I thought we should teach this. And I became very interested in learning more about it. And my experience is, if you want to develop, like really become an expert in a topic, you need to read about 5 books on it. And so if you read all of Prabhupada's books, you could say, well, that if I read everything Prabhupada said about a topic, that would be 5 books. But actually, when you extract it, it may not be. It may not even be equivalent to a quarter of a book that someone else has written on the topic. And so if you want to get a full context of it from the spiritual, psychological, secular, and other religious points of view, and then be able to put Krishna consciousness in that context to give the broadest understanding of the topic, then it's good if you read what research has been done in a certain area, what scholars say about it, what psychologists say about it, what other religionists say about it, and of course what everything Prabhupada says and our acharyas say about it. So that's what I did with marriage. That's what I did with forgiveness, and I've done it with other topics. And the realization I had was quite amazing, that I would study, read, take notes, organize, study, read, like in ways that I couldn't normally do it. And I realized when you're interested in a topic, that's what happens. You can absorb your mind completely if you're interested, or you get attached to learning something. So that's why it's really good for us who don't read enough, or want to read more, but we don't find it easy to read Prabhupada's books, or maybe they're not entertaining enough, or whatever, or they're too academic, or whatever the reason is. Or some devotees say, well, I know the philosophy, it seems to be repetitive. So if you become interested, something piques your interest, or there are questions in your mind, what about this? Or like Krishna Karshani, she's always asking the question about, did we actually fall from the spiritual world? It doesn't make sense. So that's a question. Did we fall from the spiritual world, or did we not? Could we fall? Is it possible to fall from prema? And so that's a question. And now you can begin researching. You study all of Prabhupada's books. Fall from Vaikuntha, fall from the spiritual, fall of the jiva. And you study, and you can compile documents. And then you get absorbed. And so that's a beautiful way to get absorbed in reading and get absorbed generally in Krishna consciousness. And so Prabhupada here in this statement is saying, you're going to be absorbed in something. You're going to become attached to something. And if we can become attached to hearing and chanting, it's going to make our life in Krishna consciousness a lot easier. So that's what I take from this, what we read about Prabhupada saying. if you become detached from one thing, you're going to be attached to another material thing if you're not Krishna conscious. And so if we can become attached to reading and discussing and thinking of the philosophy, and even sometimes we may not be satisfied with the conclusion that we come to, or we may not even come to a conclusion, but the process in coming to that conclusion was that we had to study, and that study was just bringing our mind more and more into Krishna consciousness. And by doing that, you become more and more attached to reading Prabhupada's books because you'll see more and more what's in them. So you had some comments, and I'm going to go back. And wow, go back like 45 people back. Okay. Welcome to all of you. Nice to see you, that you're here for our daily Bhagavatam class. Hare Krishna. So, the quote that I read is under Kamaniya's name, if you want to look at it or save it. It's a lecture December 27th, 1975, if I remember correctly, about being attached. So the holy days tomorrow. Here they are. Oh yes. Wow. Balaram Rasa, tomorrow's a special day. Balaram Rasa Yatra, Sri Krishna Vasanta Rasa. That's Krishna's spring Rasa Leela. You have the famous autumn Rasa Leela. Appearance of Radha Kund tomorrow on the same. I had no. Vamsi Vadana Thakur appearance. Shaimananda Prabhu appearance. Wow, tomorrow's quite a day. And this was the actual day my daughter was born. So, that was an auspicious day to be born. And she's got the name Shaima Mandali. And we have Shaimananda, so that worked out well. Thank you for posting that. Bamsi Vadana Thakur, yeah. Tomorrow, because it's her birthday, my wife wants me to help. We're having an early party, so tomorrow we won't have class. And I think one day a week, it's probably going to be Thursday. I'm not sure. We may not have class because China wants me to do a class, and the best time for them is 7 a.m. And if possible, maybe I can broadcast on 2 formats, so you could attend if you want. You just have to bear with the Chinese translation, but I will keep you posted. So Krishna Karshani says, Goshai ke Karshani. Gosya. I call her Gosai, but that's male, I think. So we'll just call her Gosya. Gosya ke Karshani. Sometimes the statement of Srila Prabhupada's might be contradictory, so reading all Prabhupada statements might be a bit dangerous because we may end up confused. So how to do it, not to end up confused. One time, this is an interesting answer. One time Prabhupada was asked, what if we don't understand something? Prabhupada said, read it again. Read it again, read it again. So that's one way to deal with the confusion. Just keep reading it because maybe there's something you don't understand. And by reading it, it'll become clear. If that doesn't work, then it's time to go to other sources, commentaries, or you would just go online and pose that question. Srila Prabhupada says this here, but he says this there. How is it that? And then there may, if it's a common question, there'll probably be a lot of comments. One thing, when there's contradiction, one thing you want to understand, first thing is like, what is the context Prabhupada's speaking about? Because if you don't understand the context, then that's why you could see contradiction. So if you don't understand the context, you can just say it's contextual. The contradiction is contextual. I don't understand why he's saying this in this situation. Because then you could say, but which one is right? So then you do further research, you write letters to senior devotees and say, this is my confusion. And so that way you still remain absorbed. So it's not bad that there's apparent contradiction. It just absorbs you more and you're thinking about it and you go to bed thinking. But Prabhupada said this here, but over here he said this. So why did he say something contradictory? Or is it not contradictory and I just think it is? And this way your mind is absorbed in something other than gossip. Now, I have to say something that I read today. This is an important story. So everyone, please listen. If you were distracted, doing something else, you're sitting at home. I don't know what you're doing. I can't see you. But I tend to think when you're hearing class sitting at home, you might be multitasking or looking around or going into their fridge and seeing. Still hear me speaking, but you're looking in the fridge. So stop what you're doing and listen to this story. Prabhupada's servant, to keep him innocent, I won't mention his name. To protect his innocent, I won't mention his name. He was cooking. And there were some other devotees with him cooking. And Prabhupada could hear the conversation. And the conversation was complete gossip. The story didn't say what he was talking about, but it was total gossip. Nothing to do with Krishna. Absolutely nothing. Just small, petty gossip. Prabhupada called him in and chastised him because Prabhupada could hear what he was saying. He was really angry, really upset. And then Prabhupada said something which I would like you to tattoo to your heart. Prabhupada said, gossip will destroy this movement. Wow. Gossip will destroy this movement. So then you might say, what is gossip? Katha that has no spiritual benefit. Katha in relation to material things, and especially katha topics in relation to what other people are doing. That is not Krishna conscious. Or what a devotee is doing, all the bad things a devotee is doing, that's gossip. And all the good things the non-devotees are doing, that's also gossip. Who got married, who got divorced, who is a bad parent, who's a good parent, who I like, who I don't like, what was my favorite food last night, all the standard Facebook gossip. So what I'm saying is that we want to train our minds to be thinking more in terms of the way Prabhupada writes in his books. That kind of thinking, that kind of vision of the world, that kind of philosophical thought process. And if our minds work that way, instead of just like going on Facebook and finding all kinds of unlimited, interesting things, material world is very interesting. It's Krishna's energy, and it's not unlimited. It just appears to be. So there's always going to be some amazing, 12-year-old singing a song like you've never heard before, and there's going to be some amazing guy giving a talk about something amazing and this and that, and it's partially a sign that we're not absorbed in hearing, that we're attracted to those things. And so right now, it's the best time in the history of the universe to hear, because if you go online practically 24/7, some very learned, advanced, scholarly, charismatic devotee is giving class or chanting japa or doing kirtan. It's like amazing what's going on now, or doing a seminar on japa or whatever. Yesterday we did kirtan on a channel called Kirtan Juntos, Kirtan Together, and there was like six kirtans that day on that channel. And my daughter, she's like going, there's a certain time for her Guru Maharaj's class, then Bibi Govinda gives a class at a certain time, and she's just like all day she's listening, and she's like in total ecstasy, learning all these things, listening. So I think you get the point. This is how our minds are supposed to be molded, so that we become absorbed in the thoughts that Prabhupada wants to give us, rather than the thoughts that are just thrown at us on the internet. Okay, that's my spiel. That's my introduction. Now, Kamaniya, I want to go to the quotes I sent you from the third canto, 30th chapter. So if any of you are interested, you can go on Database, click on Srimad Bhagavatam, go down to Canto 3, click on Chapter 30, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. And this is called Description by Lord Kapila of Adverse Fruitive Activities. And you will find this totally relevant to what we're speaking. So, well, let me go down and see if anyone else had a comment that I need to comment on. Satyarupa says, I'm usually complacent, but I've found that when I pray to Prabhupada and the Acharyas, it gives inspiration and absorption. Yeah. Complacency is a real problem, especially considering we don't have that many years to live and we need all of them. So to be complacent it's kind of like resting during a race. Badar Soma says, can these classes go on forever? I'm getting addicted. Well, as long as we're locked down and I'm not traveling, yeah, let's do it. Let's keep going. Now you're all going to pray that the coronavirus continues, right? So I never travel. I just saw a video today, and I can't comment on it, but it was extremely interesting and horrifying. And the person said, the places that people are getting sick the most are all the places where 5G has been activated. And he said the problem is the 5G is destroying their bodies, and that's why the people are getting sick. It's not the coronavirus. Wow. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just 5G is a problem. Marco says, who are the gopis of Balaram? Yeah, you missed the point. I didn't give the answer though. I'm still trying to understand myself. So when I get the answer, I'll give it to you. What rasa are they in and why, and yeah. Krishna Karshani says, often I have a chance to watch on Facebook fights between devotees who are using a weapon of quotes of Srila Prabhupada. What channel is that? I want to watch that. That'll be like the best channel out there, right? Everyone will watch it. So it seems that sometimes knowing too much regarding what Srila Prabhupada said might be detrimental. No. There's a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it addresses this exact point, that you shouldn't shy away from these discussions. You should actually have them. I mean, maybe you had an understanding and all of a sudden someone brings up the point that Prabhupada right here in the 7th canto said something different. And you say, oh, I don't remember reading that, or I didn't know that. So now you have to think about it. And so now what are you doing? You're thinking, well, he said this and he said that, and what's right? Women, Diksha Guru, not Diksha Guru, what's the Shastra say? What's the evidence? Well, he says this, quotes this verse, but they say that. So even though, my point is, even though there's controversy, at least you're getting absorbed in thinking about the philosophy in ways you haven't. And the basic rule is, don't offend anybody. Don't take sides, even if you agree, no, we didn't fall from Vaikuntha, or you think, no, we must have fallen. Prabhupada said it. No, but elsewhere he said we didn't, and how is it? Whatever, just don't make offenses. The one God brother said, he said, according to Gaudiyas, if you go Gaudiya Math and like that, they will all say we came from Brahman. And so you and ISKCON say you came from Vaikuntha, which proves, this was his conclusion, and this is what I'm saying we shouldn't do, which proves all you ISKCON gurus who say this cannot be bona fide, because you don't even know the Siddhanta, that we didn't fall from Vaikuntha. So when it comes to that, then it's a problem. But when it comes to, okay, in some places Prabhupada said nobody falls from Vaikuntha, only Jai and Vijay, which was a special case. In other places he said we were with Krishna and Leela. So it seems, no, but there a broader definition of Leela. What does Prabhupada mean? We're with Krishna and Leela. And then he says, back to Godhead. How can you go back if you've never been there? But then he says, but then Srila Bhakti Siddhanta says, no, we originate in Brahman and we fall from there. So Krishnadas Kaviraj says, don't shy away from those discussions. Have them. It's good. Just don't become offensive and don't lose faith. But understand that Krishna consciousness is very broad. It's very dynamic. And if you're always looking for black and white answers, it's not necessarily the nature of the spiritual world to be black and white. In fact, sometimes you'll read something that Prabhupada will say, and then he'll describe the Leela differently in another place. And then it's like, did Prabhupada make a mistake? Was he confusing two Leelas? And often the answer is, that's how it happened in one millennium. It happened differently. Krishna doesn't have to do it the same in every millennium. So then you get that answer. You go, oh, okay, I understand the nature of the spiritual. It's very broad. So if you can just not lose faith and not offend anyone, then these kinds of discussions, according to Krishnadas Kaviraj, these kinds of discussions are very healthy, very important, very valuable. So don't shy away. It's okay. Face it, discuss it, ask senior devotees, what's going on here, what have you... And this is what we should be doing. This is what Prabhupada wants us to do. And then, like I said, then you have to go to the books and start reading more and understanding more. And that's what we should do, because that will absorb the mind. That will take us off of Facebook. It will take us away from gossip and get into the real Katha. That's the point. And if you do that, then everything is good. So we want to post, I had sent you 3rd canto, 30th chapter, beginning text 1. But if for some reason, I sent that as a PDF, I thought. And if not, you can go to the database and start 331. Description of Lord Kapila's adverse fruitive activities. We're getting there. Comment. From Sanatani all the way in Norway, where the snow is bright. Thank you so much for enlightening us on many important topics. I have, for a long time, been curious on Balaram Vasali. Thank you for mentioning it. Yeah, I will have more information, hopefully, in the future. But for now, our understanding is whatever Balaram does, he does to support Krishna. He's not in the role of enjoyer. He's the older brother and the friend and the support. So he manifests everything in the spiritual world. It's all support. So if he's doing Rasa Leela, it's to support. But what that means and who those gopis are, I still have to understand that better, how doing that would support Krishna. Yeah, we did finish 1076, but I sent you a new document of the 3rd canto, 30th chapter that I want to read. Krishna Karshini says, I believe we're not confused with what Prabhupada said in his books. We may sometimes be confused by what he said in his conversations regarding the same topic, saying different things. Different things to different devotees, not understanding the situation. Yeah, and also, I sent maybe 7:30, maybe like an hour ago, I sent it, hour and a half. And the document name, I don't know the name. I sent you 2 things, but it's okay. You can just go to database and pull it up there, verse by verse. I just want to put up verse by verse. Oh, found it. Oh, okay. She found it. So The thing about Prabhupada's conversations is that he's talking to someone. And when you're talking to someone and telling, like if you and I talk privately, I might tell you something which I would never say publicly because it doesn't apply to other people. And that's just a fact of life. Because sometimes you will, like for example, sometimes a disciple will tell the guru, I can't chant 16 rounds. And he'll say, well, then just start 8. And then next month 10. And then next month 12. And next month 4. But you're not going to say that publicly because then it becomes a universal instruction. And then people who are chanting 16 will think, oh, I could chant 8. I'll take a break and just chant 8. So that's the conversation. Yeah. The letters also can be circumstantial, but so we have to understand who's Prabhupada talking to. In his books, the context is different. He's talking to the world forever. In the conversation, he's just talking to that person. It doesn't invalidate necessarily what he said in the conversation, but it makes it difficult if we don't know the context. And at least we understand that there may be a context that's not applicable, and that requires some intelligence and discussion. But still, I think, in a sense, the confusion is good because it forces us to think more about why did Prabhupada say that, and why did he say this other thing, and which one is true, and I wonder what the context was, and then we have to start absorbing our mind. That's the whole point. Okay, so now, ISKCON Katha, not gossip. I have doubts we can avoid ISKCON Katha, being part of ISKCON. I'll say one thing, the more you're absorbed in talking about Krishna, the less attracted you will be to talking about other things. Okay, so we're going to read. This is, if you want to read along, this is the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the first canto, this is the third canto, 30th chapter. We're beginning with text 1. So the reason I want to read this is because it's applicable, but also the reason I want to read this is because there's a big push now in ISKCON to read more, and a lot of the educators and preachers are being asked, would you have Facebook groups where you just read Prabhupada's books? And I know we all like the discussion, and I will discuss, but I'll probably read a little more than we discuss, because I think a lot of what we're going to read here, we've already discussed a lot. And so now, reading it in light of the fact that we discussed it, I think is more pleasing, and we can go deeper. The personality of Godhead said, as a mass of clouds does not know the powerful influence of the wind, a person engaged in material consciousness does not know the powerful strength of the time factor by which he is being carried. The wind carries, right? The clouds, and the time factor carries living entities to their demise. Purport. The great politician Pandit named Chanakya said that even one moment of time cannot be returned, even if one is prepared to pay $1 million. He didn't say exactly $1 million, he said gold. But Prabhupada's putting it in the current context. One cannot calculate the amount of loss there is in wasting valuable time. Either materially or spiritually, one should be very alert in utilizing the time which he has at his disposal. A conditioned soul lives in a particular body for a fixed measurement of time. And it is recommended in the scriptures that within that small measurement of time, one has to finish Krishna consciousness and thus gain release from the influence of the time factor. But unfortunately, Those who are not in Krishna consciousness are carried away by the strong power of time without their knowledge, as clouds are carried by the wind. So I think the main idea of this verse, which stands out, is that none of us, I think all of us feel it would be nice to live a long time because it would give us more of a chance to be Krishna conscious. And so what we're saying is, I need as much time as possible. If I die young, maybe I won't be Krishna conscious. I need as much time as possible to be Krishna conscious. We all feel that way. Most of us feel, I don't think I'll be ready when I die unless I die when I'm like 350 years old, which is possible if you do yoga. Because at Kumbh Mela, Prabhupada said, there are many yogis here that are 300 years old and like that. But we're not probably going to live that long because we don't do yoga like that. So the obvious point is, we need as much time as we can to be Krishna conscious. And so every moment we waste not being Krishna conscious, we've just lost that time that we need. So if I'm apathetic, if I'm casual, if I'm lazy, if I have those tendencies, then I should think, but I need all that time to be Krishna conscious. This is really foolish to be wasting time. I don't have that time to waste. That's the problem. We think we have time to waste, but we don't. That's the point of this verse. Let's go to text 2. I'll read the Sanskrit, and that gives Kamini a time to come up with the verse. Para Ananda is saying, is the debate really good? Maybe it won't get resolved. It may not get resolved, but the debate is interesting. It helps us absorb our mind if we don't become offensive. So this is text number 2. Okay, we're not reading the Sanskrit. We have text 2. Whatever is produced by the materialist with great pain and labor for so-called happiness, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the time factor, destroys. And for this reason, the conditioned soul laments. Let me read that again. I was breaking that up. Whatever is produced by the materialist with great pain and labor for so-called happiness, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the time factor, destroys. And for this reason, the conditioned soul laments. This is, this is so interesting to read, because one devotee was writing me and she said her friends, they think we're so negative. And I said, we're not negative, we're just describing reality. And nobody wants to describe reality. Everyone wants to put their head in the sand. So when you describe reality, then they say you're negative. And the fact is that a lot of reality is negative, and nobody wants to admit that. And that's what this verse is explaining. It's, we'll read this and think, yes, this is very profound, it's very deep, but it actually is only profound and deep because nobody talks about it. It's not profound and deep in the sense, it's just what is. But nobody talks about what is. They talk about what isn't. They don't want to see what is. So when you talk about what isn't, wow, that's deep, that's profound, and then, you become the big guru and people buy millions of your books. And what did you say in your book? Life is short. We don't have much time. Nothing's stable. Everything's changing. Wow, profound. What's so profound? Your 5-year-old can understand that. But so it's profound in the context that we're so illusion. We think nothing's going to change and everything's going to live forever. So when you just say the truth, then you become a reputed author or speaker. Or else people hate you because you just told them that, hey, keep on the road. You're driving off the cliff. Don't be negative. Why are you being negative? Okay, drive off the cliff. That's a little more negative, I think. Why are you always talking about dying? It's so negative. Yeah, well, that's where you're going, and you could do something about it. So I found that quite funny. We're so negative. Not negative, realistic. Purport. The main function of the time factor, which is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to destroy everything. Wow. The main function of the time factor is to destroy everything. And so the question is why? Because that's what we need to become Krishna conscious. The materialists in material consciousness are engaged in producing so many things in the name of economic development. Right now, this 5G thing, it's like you need 5G for artificial intelligence. You need 5G to run these driverless cars. You're going to be, with 5G, you can do operations, through robotic operations. Your doctor could be in India doing the operation for you in Switzerland. And he's moving the robot. And there's so many things you could do. I think you can draw in the air. I mean, it's crazy, right? And that 5G is going to kill our health. But look what it will do for the economy. You want to, this guy is saying, invest in 5G because all the phone chips, invest in the companies that make chips because all the phones are going to be 5G. So there's so much money relying on it, and it's so bad. It's being shown. It's so bad for us physically. And anything that pushes the economy, it always gets through, even though the ramifications may be very harmful. So that's what we're facing in the world today. They think that by advancing and satisfying the material needs of man, they will be happy. But they forget that everything they have produced will be destroyed in due course of time. From history, we can see that there were many powerful empires on the surface of the globe that were constructed with great pain and great perseverance. But in due course of time, they all have been destroyed. Still, the foolish materialists cannot understand that they are simply wasting time in producing material necessities. When Prabhupada says material necessities, he's actually being sarcastic. He means so-called necessities, which are destined to be vanquished in due course of time. Still, the foolish materialists cannot understand that they are simply wasting time in producing material necessities, which are destined to be vanquished in due course of time. This waste of energy is due to the ignorance of the mass of people who do not know that they are eternal and they have an eternal engagement also. They do not know that this span of life in a particular type of body is but a flash in the eternal journey. This life is so important. It's so valuable. My friends, my family, my this, my that. It's so valuable, right? And what is it? It's a flash. I don't want to die. It's just a flash. But I want to live a long time. Live a long time. It's still a flash. And so Prabhupada's trying to put everything in perspective. And we should know all these things. We should be conscious of these things. And people who are inclined to Krishna consciousness, they come to a lot of these realizations even before they read Bhagavad Gita because their brains are starting to work, or from past lives, they understood this. And so they can see. Pashyanapi na pashyati. They can see what others can't see. Although you see, you don't see. It's such a beautiful verse, isn't it, in Bhagavatam? Although they see, they don't see. This waste of energy is due to the ignorance of the mass of people who do not know that they are eternal and that they have an eternal engagement also. They do not know that this span of life in a particular type of body is but a flash in the eternal journey. Not knowing this fact, they take the small flash of life to be everything, and they waste time in improving economic conditions. Hare Krishna. Okay, so what did Prabhupada just say? He said, we're focused on this life, we're focused on improving economy. Okay, that's another way of saying we're focused on accumulation, because if you improve economy, you have more money. If you have more money, you get more stuff. You can upgrade your material standard of living. So Prabhupada's saying they're not thinking about the next life. They're only thinking about it. They're only thinking about upgrading their jail cell in this life, not getting out of the prison. What is that called? That's called stupid. And that's why Prabhupada said people who are not Krishna conscious are less intelligent, even if materially they're intelligent. They have many PhDs, high IQ, scientists, doctors. They may be way smarter than we are, but spiritually not intelligent if there is no plan for what happens after this body. This life is a flash, and then you have eternity. So this life is nothing. And why are you spending all your time on the flash when you have all this life ahead of you? That doesn't make sense. So, simple point, right? And then you write a book about it, and you'll tell people, you know you're going to die, and you should do something. I mean, why don't one of you write the book? You'll become famous. You'll put Eckhart Tolle out of business. Eckhart Tolle didn't say anything profound. He just gave the basic Buddhist teachings, be mindful. And people are like, wow, it's so profound. Be in the present moment. Because we're so messed up. If someone just says something, perennial wisdom, sacred wisdom, ABC wisdom, for just being sane, wow, it's so profound. Yeah, so go back a few hundred years ago, every grandmother in every village could, run circles around Eckhart Tolle, isn't it? But he just comes out and becomes a public figure, and he's like the philosopher, He's like, yeah, but when you analyze I'm not saying what he's saying is bad, but when you analyze it, it's very fundamental, ABC. And it's just, we're so jaded by this culture we're in that when someone just brings out simple truth, people are like, wow, that's amazing. That's so profound. But he's just teaching basic spiritual principles that I'm sure you would have gotten from your grandmother if you were born 100, 150 years ago in an Asian country. Maybe we should write a book called Granny Wisdom. Wisdom of the grandmothers of the past, and all that stuff will be there. What all the great spiritual teachers are there. The granny wisdom, they'll all teach the same thing. Okay. So now we're going to text 3 with your permission. Okay, I have your permission. There's no comments. Okay. As you can see, I'm a little sarcastic, but I can employ my sarcasm in a philosophical way, which I think helps us, I hope. If you don't like my sarcasm, then let me know. But I try to employ it because I think it helps kind of make us realize things a little more clearly. Okay, we're not going to text 3 yet. I have a comment. Tanya says, Srila Prabhupada's statement in Bhagavad Gita about women being less intelligent was something I couldn't understand at all, and that bothered me at first. Luckily, I started reading the memoirs of... It's a long one, okay. Of Jamuna Devi early on, and her love for Prabhupada compelled me to suspend my disbelief and aversion towards statements like that. I thought maybe I just don't understand. Or maybe he's right, I'm less intelligent. And it's just my ego fighting. We're all less intelligent, don't worry. Until you become a devotee, you're most intelligent. After a while listening and reading, I started feeling that his definition of intelligence was different than what we think about. Logical, mathematical intelligence, when we hear the term. His view was centered on spiritual intelligence, and for him, less intelligent person was the one who was materially attached. And that resonated with me because I see that being in the female body naturally brings an instinct to be more attached to the material sphere because its natural service is to take care of material needs of their family. Well put. I couldn't have said it any better. Thank you for saying that. That is perfect. Some of you like my sarcasm. I might go crazy. I'm not saying what Eckhart Tolle is saying. I'm not saying he's not saying things which are not helpful. I'm just saying that it's the condition of society is so depraved from spiritual knowledge that if someone comes along and explains some basics, like he's explaining basic Buddhism to the world, people get so, they find it so meaningful because they're so jaded in their life, right? It's the same for us. We're telling people, hey, look, you could die, like, oh, I never thought of it. You're killing animals. Do they have feelings? Oh, I never thought about it. So we're coming out with basic truths, but people are so covered. To them, it's like, it's so deep. When it's just common sense. You should know this. Just by seeing, you should understand. Zori says, I like the wisdom in his books, but now I realize it's only a fraction of the knowledge. Yeah. Like we can learn from so many people, but my point is not the quality of what he's teaching, but just the fact that so many grandmothers of the past were teaching this, that this was common knowledge. And when it's no longer common, then common knowledge becomes, wow, profound, that's deep, wow. That's sad, right? Okay. It's sad that something so common sense has become so deep. Okay. Some people like my sarcasm, but if you don't, I can tone it down. I do it for entertainment value. We're going for an hour and a half, so I have to keep you entertained to some degree. Okay. So now we're going to 330. Text 3. Kamini, have you put that up yet? Yes, Kamini has put it up. So go back up the chat and you'll see. Translation. The misguided materialist does not know that his very body is impermanent and that the attractions of home, land, and wealth, which are in relationship to that body, are also temporary. Out of ignorance only, he thinks that everything is permanent. So to wake people up from this slumber, we say, it's not permanent, you're going to die. And of course, everybody knows that, but everybody doesn't know that. That's why it's just so interesting that when you're just talking about what is so obvious, it is amazing that it's so necessary to talk about what's so obvious, because this culture has totally blinded people. It's everything out there. Everything you see on social media is about how right now you can get better at this, better at that, earn money with this, get this job, learn this skill, learn this trade, learn this technique, improve yourself this way. Great. So everything is about here. And you don't even know if you're going to be alive tomorrow. That's the problem. Purport. The materialist thinks that persons engaged in Krishna consciousness are crazy fellows wasting time by chanting Hare Krishna. But actually, he does not know that he himself is in the darkest region of craziness, because of accepting his body as permanent. And in relation to his body, he accepts his home, his country, his society, and all other paraphernalia as permanent. This materialistic acceptance of the permanency of home, land, etc., is called the illusion of Maya. This is clearly mentioned here. Moha griha kshetra shuni. Out of illusion only does the materialist accept his home, his land, and his money as permanent. Out of this illusion, the family life, national life, and economic development, which are very important factors in modern civilization, have grown. A Krishna conscious person knows that this economic development of human society is but temporary illusion. You remember we were reading it in the purport previously. I didn't mention the point, but I think it's worthy mentioning. And Prabhupada was saying, there are so many great societies, great civilizations. They're completely gone. You can go to Italy, you can see remnants of Roman civilization. I was in Israel, I saw remnants of the Roman Empire. And some ducks they had, water ducks, who went to a beach and said, no, this was left over from the Roman period. It looks like a broken bridge. So, your great country, where's it going to be 200-300 years? Is America going to even exist in 200-300 years? Or 400 or 500 years? Will it mean anything to anybody 500 years from now? Just some information in history books. So, that's the point Prabhupada's making. Everything you're doing is it's like a flash. And it's not going to last that long, no matter how great it is. In another part of Srimad Bhagavatam, the acceptance of the body as oneself, the acceptance of others as kinsmen in relation to the body, and the acceptance of the land of one's birth as worshipable are declared to be the products of an animal civilization. I'll explain that in a minute. When, however, one is enlightened in Krishna consciousness, he can use these for the service of the Lord. That is a very suitable proposition. Everything has a relation with Krishna. Everything has a relationship with Krishna. When all economic development and material advancement are utilized to advance the cause of Krishna consciousness, a new phase of progressive life arises. So Prabhupada is quoting a verse. The one who identifies with the body, identifies with his place of birth, and everything in relation with the body, his place of birth as worshipable. I'm going to my in India they have a name for that. I forget what they call it. That place of birth. It's got a special name which makes it kind of sound like it's special. This is where I'm going to my, they don't say the name of the city, they say I'm going to my, who can tell me what they say? Going to my, it's like we would say my place of birth, but there's another way of saying it. But it sounds kind of like I'm going to this sacred place. Instead of, I'm going to I was born in Los Angeles. Instead of saying going to Los Angeles, I say I'm going to my blank blank. I forget how they say it. Who can tell me? Who can tell me what's the word they use? Somebody knows. Someone just wrote me a letter today and used that expression. I can't remember it. So, there's a verse in Bhagavatam says, if you identify with the body, your relatives, your place of birth, then you're really no better than a cow or an ass, because that's what they do. So that's a heavy verse, but we need heavy verses to wake us up. Hey, you're like an ass. You're like a cow. You think like an ass or a cow because you're identified with all these things, and you're in illusion thinking you're not going to die. It's just a heavy verse from Bhagavatam. No, you're like an animal. Okay. Yes. Okay, so let's read text 4. Chantur bhai bhava etasmin yam yonim anuvrajat tasya tasyam salabate nivritim na virajate. Hometown? No. They have a way they say it in India. Satyarupa, how do you say I'm going back to my... There's a way you use expression used in English in India when you're going back to your hometown. If I open my email and look for this devotee's letter, I won't be able to open my email now. What's the English? The English. Not my birthplace, something else. But anyway, Suni was saying there's so many gurus who are, they're in the guru business to make money and exploit people. Material consciousness is all pervasive, come in any form. So here's the translation. The living entity, in whatever species of life he appears, finds a particular type of satisfaction in that species. Yeah, my ancestral place. Maybe they say, I'm going to my ancestral place. Chaitan, is there another word for that? Going to my ancestral place, or something like that. It's more poetic. There's more attachment to it. There's more I don't want to say sacredness. There's more honor. It's like, this is what the Bhagavatam says. My place of birth is worshipable. I'm going. This is my native place. Yeah, ancestral place, my native place. Prabhus, you want to meet me in LA? We'll go to you meet me in my native place, my ancestral home. And it's like, it's sacred, it's worshipable. We can do puja to the house I grew up in. Something like that. The living entity, in whatever species of life he appears, finds a particular type of satisfaction in that species, and he is never adverse to being situated in such a condition. This is so interesting. Ancestral home, yeah. This is so interesting. Listen to this purport. Don't go away. Whatever you're doing, stop doing it and listen to this. The satisfaction, okay, I'm going to read it dramatically. This is really interesting. The satisfaction of a living entity in a particular type of body, even if it is most abominable, is called illusion. The satisfaction of the living entity in a particular type of body, even if it is most abominable, is called illusion. Please listen, Prabhupada explains. A man in a higher position may feel dissatisfaction with the standard of life of a lower grade man, but the lower grade man is satisfied in that position because of the spell of Maya, the external energy. Maya has two phases of activities. How many? Two, right. One is called prakshepatmika, and the other is called avaranatmika. Avaranatmika means covering. Covers you. You don't see things. And prakshepatmika means pulling down. In any condition of life, the materialistic person or animal will be satisfied because his knowledge is covered by the influence of Maya. In the lower grade or lower species of life, the development of consciousness is so poor that one cannot understand whether he is happy or distressed. This is called avaranatmika. Even a hog who lives by eating stool finds himself happy, although a person in a higher mode of life sees that the hog is eating stool. How abominable that life is. Hare Krishna. So, Prabhupada here is giving us a little bird's eye view of how Maya works, that you get thrown from the human form of life and, let's say, for example, into the body of a hog. And if you see how hogs live, you just look at them and think, this is such a horrible life. You see them in Vrindavan, in the trash, in the dirt, eating stool. It's like, ooh. And the hog he's happy, satisfied. He doesn't know. He doesn't know there's deities in the temple and he fell from his position and now he's a hog. He's just, the covering of Maya is such that even though, Prabhupada's saying, even though you're suffering, even though you're unhappy, you actually don't know you're unhappy. You can't see it in a 360 degree way. You just see it, you're in the body and you're satisfied. Let's read the next verse because he goes on. We have 9 minutes left. This next verse in purport, it's so nice. The conditioned living entity is satisfied in his own particular species of life. This is text 5. While deluded by the covering influence of the illusory energy, he feels little inclined to cast off his body, even when in hell, for he takes delight in hellish enjoyment. So there you go. This is kind of the essence of what these two verses are saying. The Avaranatmika Shakti covers the living entity so much that even he lives in a hellish condition, he's happy. And you think, why would he do that? Because if he's happy in Maya, he stays in Maya. And this world is, like people eating meat or worse than meat, insects. I joke in China, you can't say no meat, fish, or eggs. You have to say no meat, fish, eggs, or insects. Hare Krishna. For us, to think that people would eat insects or, snakes or whatever, bats. But for them, this is good. So that's called avaranatmika, covered. You're so covered, you don't know what's right. You only know what you know, and what you know seems pleasing. So the purport illustrates this. It is said that once Indra, the king of heaven, was cursed by his spiritual master, Brihaspati, on account of his misbehavior, and he became a hog on this planet. After many days, when Brahma wanted to recall him to his heavenly kingdom, Indra, in the form of a hog, forgot everything of his royal position in the heavenly kingdom, and he refused to go back. This is the spell of Maya. I like that phrase. You probably heard this phrase before. The spell of Maya. You under my spell, you will do what I say. And that's the way Maya works. We're being pulled by the modes of nature. So we're really doing what she says rather than what Krishna says. Even Indra forgets his heavenly standard of life and is satisfied with a hog's life. I mean, you've heard this story, but meditate on that statement. Even Indra forgets his standard of life and is satisfied with a hog's life. That's heavy. That illusion is extremely powerful. By the influence of Maya, the conditioned soul becomes so affectionate towards his particular type of body, towards his particular type of body, that if he is offered, give up this body and immediately you will have a king's body, he will not agree. This attachment strongly affects all conditioned living entities. Lord Krishna is personally canvassing. Give up everything in this material world. Come to me, and I shall give you all protection. But we are not agreeable. We think we are quite all right. Why should we surrender under Krishna and go back to his kingdom? This is called illusion or Maya. Everyone is satisfied with his standard of living, however abominable it may be. That purport says it like it is. Is that amazing? Is that amazing or is that amazing? You were right. It's amazing. Huh. Hare Krishna. Let me read a few of the last sentences because it's just like amazing. It's worth reading over again, right? By the influence of Maya, the conditioned soul becomes so affectionate towards his particular type of body that if he is offered, quote, give up this body and immediately you will have a king's body, he will not agree. That's amazing, isn't it? This attachment strongly affects all conditioned living entities. I think we fall in that position, all conditioned living entities, but we don't want to remain conditioned. Lord Krishna is personally canvassing. This is heavy. Meditate on this. This is very heavy. Give up everything in the material world. Come to me, and I shall give you all protection. So this is what Krishna is telling us. Whatever it is, whatever you're attached to, give that up. Come to me. We're going to have fun. We're going to have a good time, and I will take care of everything. We're going to actually experience rasa, love, affection. There's no old age. There's no death. There's no stinky material body. Just come to me. You don't have to have any of this. And what do we say? But we are not agreeable. We think, quote, we are quite all right. Why should we surrender unto Krishna and go back to his kingdom? This is called illusion or Maya. Everyone is satisfied with his standard of living, however abominable it may be. So now, any of you who have distributed books, you know sometimes you give a person a book and what do they say? I am not interested. Or they say worse than that. But if they're polite and they're not interested, they'll just say, thank you, I'm not interested. Now, what is Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is Krishna's invitation saying, please come to me, come back to me, come back to my home. I've got a place for you. We're going to party. The Bhagavad Gita is your invitation. Just RSVP here with this mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Basically, Bhagavad Gita is invitation by Krishna, personal invite to go back to the spiritual world. Now, this is interesting also because we're down here neglecting him. There's no connection. It's like, why would someone invite you? You don't have any connection with them. But Krishna loves us so much. So here's Bhagavad Gita. It's my personal invitation for you to come back. So when you think of the Bhagavad Gita as a personal invitation, and then you offer it to someone and they say, no, thank you, I'm not interested. That context is interesting, isn't it? Because they're saying, no, I'm not interested in a relation with Krishna. I'm not interested in going back to God. I'm quite all right. I'm okay. Or they won't say I'm not interested. They'll say, I'm okay. Yeah, that's the problem. You're okay. Isn't it? That's the problem. You think you're okay. You're not okay, but you think you're okay. That's the problem. Here's your invitation. Krishna's inviting you to go back to God. No, I'm okay. Everything's fine. I don't have to go. I'm doing fine here. Got a good job and, on the up and up and, got 2 nice kids, nice wife, nice house. Yeah, I'm okay. And one flash, it's gone. Dude, it's gone in one flash. How can that be okay? Hello, are you thinking? That's the problem. We've been trained not to think. That's the problem. And that's why they say, I'm not interested. So this purport is beautiful because Prabhupada's saying, Krishna is inviting you. Hare Krishna. And we're saying, no, thank you. I'm doing fine, just fine as it is. Okay, so we got 5 verses, which is okay. As I said, tomorrow is a day off. I'm sorry, my wife insisted because she needs my help at this time. So we will miss you tomorrow. We'll be feeling separation from you, but I'm sure you'll make it through till Wednesday, and then we will resume Wednesday. And we'll continue reading from this section of Bhagavatam, which describes how the materialistic person leaves their body. So thank you for coming. Hare Krishna, and we'll see you Wednesday. And Radhapriya, just make a note, there'll be no class tomorrow. And we'll resume every day, this time 8 o'clock, until further notice. Hare Krishna. Yes, this theme is what I'm enthusiastic. This theme is what I have been preaching for the last few years. It's just like, hello, get this in your head. Krishna's like waiting for you. What are you doing? And there it is. Prabhupada's saying it. That's why I'm so excited. Sunny wants to know the contradiction between the body being a lump of ignorance and also a sacred temple that we need to respect. It's both. Because Krishna's inside the lump of ignorance, right? That's what it is. The physical body itself it's a lump of ignorance, means it's dead matter. But Krishna's inside your heart, so it's a sacred temple. So it's like, okay, even though it's a lump of matter, take care of it. Take care of the temple. But lump of matter means it's without the soul, it's just matter, it's decaying. And by Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying a lump of matter, don't dedicate yourself to a lump of matter, but because Krishna is in your heart, you can use your body to serve him. So in that way it becomes sacred. The lump of matter you have Sunni, a sacred lump, make your lump of matter sacred. Then everything will be good. Something like that. Okay? All right, we're going to go. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gopal Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.